probably as good of a solution to this whole thing as could be found.
Chris Drury has done it. Jacob Trouba is an Anaheim Duck. We'll get into the details in a second, but your gut reaction.
I mean, good work by the Rangers to get rid of the Trouba contract. It's obviously it hasn't been working there. I mean, we've been waiting for a Trouba trade basically since the summer, and to do it and not have to retain any money and like kind of get anything back in return. You get Urho Vaakanainen and a draft pick. Like the return doesn't even matter. You got rid of Jacob Trouba and his money, and I think at this point it's best for both sides to just go their separate ways. I like it for Trouba. I like it for the Rangers. I don't know if I like it for the Ducks, but it's fun and interesting. So let's party.
So I like it for all three sides, and I didn't like it for the Ducks initially, but yes, the details per Johnny Lazarus. Yes, that Johnny Lazarus who broke this trade. You could say, oh, somebody, Arthur Stable, a lot
That's
of good people had that a trade was happening. Johnny Lazarus had what the trade was. He had Jacob Trouba is being traded to the Ducks for Urho Vaakanainen, 25-year-old Finnish defenseman for the Ducks, first-round pick of the Bruins in 2017, I want to say, and a fourth-round pick. The big thing, though, is that, as you said, no money gets exchanged here. Chris Drury got rid of Jacob Trouba, who's got another year left on his deal at $8 million on that cap hit, just got that off the books. And now as the Rangers look forward, they have over $8.5 million in cap space suddenly and their next 3 first-round picks because they didn't have to staple anything to Jacob Trouba to get rid of him. So tidy bit of work for the Rangers. Are they going to miss him? Yes, in that they've got one of the best penalty kills in the league, and that is due in part to they have the best penalty killer in the league in Igor Shesterkin, but Jacob Trouba is like a prime penalty killer, which is why I like the deal for the Ducks, because money's kind of no object for them right now, and they're not the worst team in the league. They are towards the worst-ish group of teams in the league is how I would put them. I'd say like they're entering the group of worst teams in the league. So I think that a good way of turning that around is getting someone who's basically being given to you, because taking the cap hit is really no sweat for you. You're not going to be huge buyers anyway. This is a way that this team that is growing can improve a little bit. I don't really care about the whole leadership aspect. I think that whole thing of like the treatment of the captain and how do you do this to your captain if you're the Rangers is overblown. I will admit, Pete, you and I are both Rangers fans. We like them a lot, and we get very mad when anybody says anything bad about them. So maybe we're a little biased here. But I think that how could the Rangers do this to Jacob Trouba stuff is a little ridiculous. Fun fact was that he wasn't going to waive his no trade clause for some of these teams, which we knew going back to the summer when he was kind of hiding his no trade list from the Rangers. But apparently he wouldn't have gone to Columbus, which is interesting. I wouldn't have wanted him to go to Columbus. I like those boys too much. Just don't do bad contracts. Don't do it. Like, the Ducks can afford to do this. I don't mind it for the Ducks, and I love it for the Rangers.
Well, first of all, I don't think that losing Trouba is going to hurt the Rangers penalty kill too much. I really don't. I don't think that a lot of Trouba has. I don't think Trouba has a lot of value in his own end, whether it's at 5-on-5 or on the penalty kill anymore. I think that that's kind of a legacy thing. The reason why I like it for the Ducks,
dude, look up. He leads them in shorthanded time on ice. He is
I believe
even if
that.
they don't like him anymore, they are leaning on him. And granted, the last couple of years, Jacob Trouba hasn't been a guy that looks like someone you'd want to lean on. But no, he's still like I still say that his value is he's still a good penalty killer.
I think that he can help the Ducks. I don't know how much the Rangers are going to miss him. I think that he can help the Ducks. I think that it's interesting him going to the Ducks. We've talked a lot about the Ducks being a team that needs more like stronger voices in the room. That's why they went out and they got Radko Gudas. And like a lot of people have been making the comparison or like the link of like Gudas and Trouba on the same team. No head is safe, no chin is safe. I think that Gudas is much better defensively than a lot of people give him credit for. Trouba not so much anymore. But I do think that the voice matters. Like, you got a captain who's going to Anaheim on a very young team that could probably benefit from that voice. And like you said, they're not as the cap hit is not going to kill them as much as a lot of other teams in the league would. Just from the sake of like a fresh start, I also do like Trouba getting out of New York. where like they have turned on him so hard. And I get it from a fan perspective. You got a guy making $8 million who is a shell of himself, or what an $8 million player should be. They have been really, really hard on him. And that's no surprise with New York fans. I think he obviously did not want to leave New York. This came down to a listen, you're either going to waive this trade, no trade clause, or this is going to get ugly. And Chris Drury has proven that he is willing to take the ugly route. Look at Barclay Goodrow and how that worked out. I I like the idea of Jacob Trouba getting a fresh start in Anaheim, where maybe he goes on a little bit of a revenge tour. Personally, from like a chaos perspective, would love him to just like rediscover an awesome game and shove it in Rangers fans' faces. Do I believe in that happening? Probably not. But I think this is probably as good of a solution to this whole thing as could be found.
Yeah, I think this helps both teams. If I were the Ducks, I still would have been like, you're retaining $2 million a year.
Or like give
I,
us
I
a pick. Why are we giving you a pick and a player?
yeah, I am surprised that the Rangers didn't have to retain any money, and it's just a very tidy bit of work by Chris Drury. How do you feel about the fact that for the second straight year we are going to get Chris Drury waiving a player to get around their no trade clause?
I mean, it, it depends on how you look at it. Like, I'm not gonna blame Chris Drury. I'm not gonna hold anything against it. I think he did great work to get rid of this deal, and I think that the Rangers will benefit, whether it's this year, whether it's with the cap. They need that money. I'm not going to hold it against Chris Drury. I think that if you're a free agent and you're looking at the Rangers, maybe some might be like, "Ooh, like if things go south for me, you're gonna fuck me." Like, there is no loyalty there from a management perspective. The debate and the philosophy around like whether there should be, I think, can be had. I just think at the end of the day, the New York Rangers are still the New York Rangers. It's still a premier destination, still a team that a lot of people are in a market that a lot of people are going to want to go to. I don't think they're going to be hurt by this in the long run. And I think that a lot has been made of, they've traded their last three captains in season with McDonough, Callahan, and now Trouba. I don't I don't think that really matters a ton either. Like nobody's going to turn down being the captain of the New York Rangers. I just think they're they're kind of establishing themselves as a cutthroat organization if you're not carrying your weight both on the ice and in the room. Like
Yeah, and
how much do you owe the question is like how much do you owe Jacob Trouba at this point? And like I don't think the answer is a lot.
yeah, I don't care about that. How much do you owe the player thing? Like, if the player gets worse, and it's not that Jacob Trouba isn't holding up his end of the bargain. He's trying to be as good a hockey player as he can, but the circumstances change when you're not contributing as much as you were when you signed that deal that got you $8 million a year. And while I understand that it's not good behavior by Chris Drury, there's a difference between a no trade clause and a partial no trade clause and a no move clause. This isn't skirting the rules. This isn't going around. You're allowed to waive a player who has a no trade clause. You're allowed to waive a player who, in this case, has a partial no trade clause. A no move clause exists to say this is ironclad and you don't do anything unless this guy says so. That is not the deal that was negotiated by both of those sides. So, hate to be a stickler for the rules, but I'm kind of team Chris Drury here. I will say it's going to like if it ends up biting you in the ass and someone doesn't want to sign with you, then like you
Yeah,
kind
like
of
you
reap
made
what
that
you
bet.
sow. Yeah. So, but I also agree that for two reasons. The New York of it all, no one's gonna if somebody wants to go to New York, they don't care who the GM is. And
Right.
respectfully, I shouldn't say this respectfully. They don't care who the owner is. Like those could be deterrents. The way the GM has operated with players and just the way the owner is, those could turn you off. But it's still New York, and that's bigger than anything. And in a lot of cases with New York stuff, it's your friends are there, or your family is there, or like your personality lends itself to that place, or you know that you can get more advertising. All the advantages that New York has and the Rangers have, I think that they should still have. And what competitor, when they're signing a long-term deal with the team, says, now I got to account for what if I get way worse? They've never been bad at hockey in their entire life. It's not going to happen to them. That's something that happens to everybody else. They're the best. They're only going to keep getting better. They're not going to have the mindset of, oh no, if I get bad, will they waive me? Because no player is counting on getting bad. If they had that mindset, they wouldn't have gotten to the NHL in the first place. So I think that's a good bit of work for the Rangers, and I think the Rangers are going to be fine. I agree. They're not really going to miss him a lot. I think that it'll be worth having lost him, just knowing that now you have so much cap space that you can add with. I mean, damn, you don't have your second round pick, you don't have your third round pick, but you do have your first round pick this year, you have your first round pick next year, and you have your first round pick in 2027. If they want to make moves, and right now they're a wild card team by points percentage. Right now they're the fourth team in the Metropolitan Division. So they have a ways to go. They've lost 6 of 7 games. They're not in a good way right now. So I get the urgency in doing something, but they can do it now. So good for them.
Yeah, and I mean, you also have to consider like the full circumstances of this, and it's not just the Trouba thing. Like it's the family aspect that has made it a whole uglier situation. But also, like if you're Chris Drury, there's an element of self-preservation here where you're just like you at some point you gotta just put that stuff to the side and say business is business, especially when like you could be staring down the battle of like, hey, it's this guy or me. Because Chris Drury right now is in a contending window where like they need to push for a Stanley Cup. And if the Rangers like really, really go off the rails and continue to stay off the rails like they have been recently, Chris Drury's job might be in jeopardy. And like there is a self-preservation aspect of that where it's like, listen, I don't want to do this move. I know that maybe this is a little bit cutthroat. Maybe this will reflect poorly on me in a like a morality standpoint, but I got to be concerned with the benefit of my hockey team right now. And like this is one a very very overpaid player, a distraction potentially in the room or around the club. And number 3, you know, a situation that could be hampering my job security. So like I don't hold it against Chris Drury at all.
It's also interesting to note that Peter Laviolette ended up staying put and that the captain got moved out before the coach got moved out, because typically the easiest thing to do is just get rid of the coach, but they're riding that out. At this point, I'll ask anybody who's watching, subscribe to this page, please. What Chaos loves the subs. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers. And once we do get to 10,000 subscribers, Pete is going to wear a squirrel costume on the show. If you don't know why, you should just watch the show, because that kind of stuff sort of gets explained, even though I don't know. And Sean, we don't totally know why. It's a rule that Pete made up, and he's going to do it. It's the best event. At some point, I was going to have to do it, but it's going to be Pete. So get us to 10,000 subs and watch our show every day. We have live episodes noon, Monday through Thursday, and you can subscribe everywhere else, podcast, blah, 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 blah. Let's talk about Urho Vaakanainen, the guy that the Rangers did get. Shouldn't expect huge, huge returns here. I think the big get was that they were able to get rid of this contract, and they get back a first-round pick of 2017 from the Boston Bruins. Don Sweeney drafted him in the first round. Previous year, they took Ryan Lindgren, who's on the Rangers right now. So the Rangers loading up on former high picks of Don Sweeney. And Vaakanainen, hurt right now. Not a huge contributor, though. This is a guy who has played 5 games for the Ducks, has 1 assist. I'll note that he's a Finnish defenseman who's not on the Four Nations roster. So given how desperately that team needs defense, that they're not knocking on his door, shows you that he's still, maybe, I don't want to say he's a project, but he's definitely not reached where you thought he could be when he was drafted back in 2017. But the get is that they got a warm body, they got a draft pick, and baby, they've got $8.5 million in cap space with moving this $8 million cap hit for the next 2 years.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you get the body in the lineup, you get a depth defenseman, sure. You know, I don't know how much I believe in Urho Vaakanainen at this point, but it's something. And if it's not something, if he's not healthy, you can stash that money on LTIR or IR or whatever it is. And like, and I don't think that there's a situation where the Rangers are hurt here. Like you could not be expecting to get much back in return for Jacob Trouba. And we've hammered this point so many times. We don't need to go over it. The money's gone. That's the best thing that can happen for the Rangers at this point in time.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is a win-win. And it's a way bigger win for the Rangers It's way more impressive for the Rangers and Chris Drury, to whom I will tip my cap, because that's, I think you're supposed to tip it that way or whatever. But impressive move, not something that I thought he'd be able to do. And yeah, it would seem that it did get ugly in order for it to happen, but still, at the end of the day, your job is to manage a roster, and you have got $8 million that you didn't have yesterday. So excellent work for Chris
Yeah.
Drury on a guy that has been discussed forever. We've been talking about, when are they going to move this guy? Can they move this guy? What would it do to the room, etc. I think it became such a big distraction. You said that off the top, that moving him is probably going to do good things for the room. So win for the Rangers. I'll say lowercase W win for the Ducks. But another thing you said is, who knows? Maybe this clears Jacob Trouba's mind and inspires him. I don't think that he was uninspired in New York. I think he's obviously a very, very passionate player, but maybe this leads to good things for him, which would be amazing. And I do think either way, this improves the Ducks roster.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I overall, I'm happy that the saga is over and that we can all move on. But the big question now for me is that, is this it for the Rangers, or are or is this the first of like a, hey, we're making wholesale changes with what we've been for the last number of years? Because obviously they're in a weird place right now. They're in a bad place right now. I'm sure he's not the only contract that they wish that they were free of. So I think it's interesting to keep an eye on the Rangers and how they might be open for business.
They've lost 6 of 7. They've got a coach whose seat should be pretty hot, and they just backed into a ton of money, and they got picks to burn. They're going to do something. So, like, when we say the saga is over, if you don't like hearing about what are the Rangers going to do about blank, I got bad news for you. That's only just beginning, because you are going to hear them being in on every player that gets brought up from now until the March 7th trade deadline. And I'll take that over having to hear about Jacob Trouba every day. Good work, Chris
100%.
Drury.
And if you're a
Good work.
Rangers fan, I know that you have opinions. If you're watching this video, please just like give us your trades. Give us the trades that you want made.
Yes.
Just leave them right below. I hate doing like the leave it in the comments, but like that is going to be an incredible source of like a crowdsourcing. I want to know the trades that you want to
Oh,
see.
yeah. One of my favorite things at the end of the season was, once your team gets eliminated, what's the most ridiculous solution you've heard to your team's problems? Like, just get this guy, do this, whatever. Rangers fans, you just probably came into about 900 of those. So give us your, like, oh, I think that before Leon Draisaitl's contract begins, I think they can move him. So blah, blah, blah. I mean, there was already, Brooksy was saying Brady
Yeah,
Tkachuk.
I was going to say, Larry Brooks is trying to manifest a Brady Tkachuk trade, and every insider was like, absolutely not. Not happening.
That's a good part of today as well. It got pissy media stuff.
Yeah. So.
Brooksy, no. I heard, who is it that said, is it Drager, who was like zilch on Brady Tkachuk to the Rangers? When I see that, I'm like, oh, send him now. Do it. Do it. Do it for Brooksy. Do it for Brooksy. Oh, I mean,
best
we learned today Chris Drury can do anything.
Comments below.
What's that?
Best Brady Tkachuk trade proposals in the comments below. Let's do it.
We all silly like the mayor.